a financial figurine, an income profit manifesting machine. The only value they said I have is green. They called me a fiction, they called me extreme. They called me a pimp, as a matter of fact. They painted me violent, they painted me.
So we sage everything. We sage, for those who don't know about saging, sage is a purifier. It's a balancer. It brings things back to center, back to balance. So we sage for many reasons. I sage all my paperwork. I sage to purify, to have clean, honorable intentions. I sage for purity. I sage for the highest interest of not just my daughter, but myself, the receiving parties, the collective, the one, the I and I. So we always sage everything. If you don't know about saging, obviously, I recommend looking into saging, the benefits of it for your house, for air. We purify air and we purify breath. Breath is spirit. Smoke in Aboriginal Turtle Island tradition, smoke from sage, from tobacco, from the Chanupa, takes your communication, your wishes and your prayers to the ancestors, to the great mystery, to the great spirit, and to the collective that is all of us. So when we sage, we purify our intentions, ourselves, our bodies. In this case, communication. I also do it for protection. Purify space, purify negative energy, negative intentions. And so anything I receive from these courts and from the opposing attorney, I try to set my intention and purify, protect myself. Anything from the courts, from the judges. So be good to your spirit, treat it all holistically. We're casting spells when we're writing and spelling, and our word, mentalism, to thought, to voice, and sound creates life. So be mindful, that's why we sage. And that's why we set our intentions as well. So I thought I would do hopefully a semi-concise and fairly quick video on just my case in family court as a father, as a parent, and what I've faced and the paperwork that's been involved. The paperwork is a big part of going through family court. The hearings, and I've been in court now for 3 years, and I think I've had an abnormally excessive amount of hearings, court hearings, where you're actually in court presenting and defending. But even with that, with my unique case, the paperwork still trumps hearing and court dates. It doesn't compare. It's not even in the ballpark. The majority of the chaos and the soul-sucking and the fighting and the manipulation is done through procedure, through paperwork, the accusations, the affidavits, the depositions, the motions, the petitions, the evidence, all that goes along with trying to fight adversarial American family court. So I thought I'd show my paperwork just to share for people in my community, but as well as the greater community. So those who are just getting into family courts, those who have already been through it, and we validate each other through the community that has spoken out and continues to speak out, not just speak out, but have actions and tangible, intelligent solutions that we're trying to orient and make sure this doesn't continue to happen or happen to other people. So education, knowledge is potential power, so we try to educate ourselves, so we don't repeat mistakes, and so others don't have to repeat mistakes as well. Case in point is one of my closest friends here in Colorado, who his wife was actually really close friends and still is with my daughter's mother, And so my case was unfolding about a year ahead of him going through the exact same thing. My daughter's mother kind of coaching his wife through the steps that she tried to utilize to get control, get power, get custody and all that. So the benefit of what I learned, what I saw in my life that I was able to pass to my close friend was helpful, was preventative. And so the knowledge, the experience, the mistakes, learning from mistakes, all that can help us not reinvent the wheel and not do what other people did that got them in trouble or just got bad results, got less time instead of more time, got penalties, liens against them, as in my case. So that's why I share all of it, is to share my story, not to beat the drum of negativity and the hardship and depression and victimization or any victim mentality, but to have positive solutions, education, camaraderie with those who commune and can relate to what we've gone through, and just solution oriented to try to make the future what we want as people, families, communities, nations, and otherwise. So to give just a brief history of my case for those that don't immediately know me, I had a child with a woman that I was in a relationship with for 3.5 years. It was planned. We spent over half a year discussing details and responsibilities, finances, all the things that I felt a responsible parent should and would want to do, bringing a life into this world intentionally. So we did all that and spent due diligence trying to make sure we were on the same page, had short-term and long-term common goals and plans for an important decision such as that. For how many children come into this planet unplanned and with no intention. I'm not saying we did the best, but we worked really hard and diligently to try to leave no stone unturned and really be responsible co-creators. So in my case specifically, it got into what I now have learned to be narcissism, cluster Bs. I was dating a woman I knew nothing about. And so everything I knew about her was a lie. Her career, her family life, everything that I understood to be her. I had conversations and relationships with her other family members who just none of it was real. And so it was just an extreme case of a pathological liar who literally lied about every aspect of her life. Whether I'm a fool or I got played, I got hustled, or the true skill set of this woman to have such a charade for such an extended period of time. Nonetheless, we agreed and chose intentionally to have this child together. 4 weeks before our child was born, we were both lived in Colorado. None of us lived in Oregon, had any history of living in Oregon, nothing to do with Oregon. 4 weeks before our child was born, she fled to Oregon, cut off all ties from me, and went into hiding. Couldn't find her. Basically took away all my rights to any parenting, contact, communication, involvement with the birth of my child or the development of my child after that. So a month after my child was born, she served me with papers here in Colorado. They took jurisdiction in Oregon because of the UCCJEA is the commercial code for jurisdiction with children. I don't want to get too complicated because it'll lose everybody. Nobody wants to be in the technicality of legalese and paperwork. Trust me, I've been 3 years and it'll test your wits and your will and your sanity and your faith and your joy and vibrancy in general. So that's why we try to bring awareness, period, and have positive solutions, because we're conscious, compassionate people that don't want anybody to go through this, period. No matter your gender, mothers, fathers, or otherwise. I don't wish this on my daughter's mom, on anybody. So my intention is for positive progress and common sense. So a month after my daughter was born, I was trying to establish legal rights because I had none. And so I tried to initiate some sort of parental rights hearing here in Colorado. I was unable to serve her with any paperwork because I couldn't find her wherever she was in Oregon. So she had me served finally in Colorado from Oregon. There was a battle between the two states. They had ex parte hearings where they don't include the other party. They had a few of those in Oregon. They took jurisdiction in Oregon of the child, of our daughter specifically. And so any matter that was going to be heard on my daughter specifically was going to be held in Oregon. So she got jurisdiction, and on July 14th, 2014 is when all this started. The chaos that is adversarial family courts and legalese and contracts and craziness. So from June 14th, 2014, I'm sorry, that's when my daughter was born, was June 14th, 2014. July 14th, a month after, is when the actual legal hearing started. From July 14th, 2014 to today, it is August 8th, it's going to be the 8th, 2017. So I've been doing this type of paperwork, legalese battling, for just over 3 years. The battling in my case started, I've been battling truly for about 4 years, because in my case with the narcissism, what I learned later and what really ended up happening and leading up to her fleeing the state, there was a lot happening right after conception. She saw lawyers and things that I just didn't know at the time. But the process started a year before my daughter was born. So my daughter's 3 though, and this is 3 years of legal battling in the state of Oregon, ultimately leading to where I have 2% of time, mother has 98% of time. I have 4 weekends a year in Colorado. That's 8 days to mother's rest of the year in Oregon, which is 357 days. So I've never been convicted of being unfit, shown to be unfit. I've gone through psychological exams, parental evaluations, parental coordinations, everything that worst case scenario family cases could probably see. So I've done them all. This is the sum total of the paperwork. This is 3 years. And the point of me addressing this is because I think it's a travesty. I'm a great parent. I'm a great man. And there's been a battle for 3 years to just fling mud and see what sticks. And the default isn't innocent till proven guilty. I had my daughter at a month of age. The first hearing they did, they put a status quo order in that said I could have no parenting time. That the status quo order means status quo is what the routine has been, will continue to be until there's a hearing. So after the status quo order was put into place, the routine that had been is I had never even met my daughter yet. So I had had no parenting time, and so I was allowed no parenting time moving forward until we would have our initial parenting time petition and hearing. So, but the default was all custody rights, access went to mother, just off the bat. That was an ex parte hearing that I wasn't even involved with. I didn't even know it happened until the judge in Colorado informed me what was going on in Oregon. And the judge in Colorado, in my opinion, was a good human being. And that's why I've done the videos on the difference in my experience between Colorado to Oregon in my experience. And the judge here seemed very honorable, and she went to bat for me and demanded that they rehab these jurisdiction hearings and the ex parte hearings on the status quo order and involve me and include me. Basic things, due process. That's such a basic fundamental right. And yet, from the very onset of my family law experience, that's been the case. There haven't been judges in Oregon protecting me in any way, shape, or form. They've defaulted, whether it's the Duluth method, just defaulting in the name of the woman and trying to protect the woman off the bat by any means, I guess. But 100% custody, that's extreme, to where I couldn't even get an hour in the park when my daughter was born. So obviously that gets into creation rights, parental rights, obviously. The difference between men and women and what our rights are. And it's been a wealth of learning for me since having gone through this experience. And I can't believe what I've learned and what I've personally gone through as a man that feels I'm a man of integrity and good spirit and good character, and to, after 3 years of all this paperwork, be in a position where I have 2% time, and just to get any more, my case right now, if I want any more time, I have to go back in a year and fight for it. So that's not 2% with incremental normal increases in parenting as my daughter gets older. She's 3 years old right now. That's just 2%. If you want more, you got to fight for it and do this, go through the adversarial process of family courts. So I think that is crazy, and I think it's more than neglect, in my opinion, and my family's talked about and we've tried to understand, and through the things we've watched on YouTube and talking to various attorneys, and just having firsthand experience to judges that have no compassion, have no due diligence, practice no strict scrutiny, really don't reference any case law, and don't put any of the statutes in a lot of my scenarios on record before the court. And it's just one man. In my case, it was mostly men. The first judge was a woman, that have all the power in one hands. I mean, that's why I'm an advocate for jury trials for family courts. I think if there would have been real parents and real human beings that have families or value families, or just a jury of our peers in general, people that look, sound, and feel like people I associate with. And I don't even mean strictly my cultural demographic, but to have these judges and attorneys who, are, obviously deep into the six figures, if not more, in their lifetime, obviously, world travelers, compared to somebody like me coming in, that we just have no commonality, especially in a place like Oregon. I've done the video on the cultural and racial demographics that I feel are an obvious factor in my case, and probably in a multitude of cases throughout America, as in most social politics of America, that culture and race and our demographics are a significant factor. So trying to bring some sort of balance and peace in my own life, of having your child taken away, having zero protections of equality or otherwise with your family members, and learning what that means, and what power means, and what dominance over you means, and what protection means, and what the Constitution was supposed to mean, and then what the real procedural process is. I mean, to mention even the Constitution in there, like, it's not even a part of anything. And the Constitution being the supreme law of the land, and the supremacy clause, that all things have to be in alignment with the Constitution of the United States, and we'll get into if we're contracted into being citizens or not, but it doesn't matter if you just go by the story that the government goes by and the people of the populace go by, that we're a constitutional republic, not even really a democracy now, but we're run by a constitution, right? most people still know there's a Constitution and a Bill of Rights, and obviously these attorneys and the judges know they're prestigious, masters of their trade. And so to even have to be arguing some of these things as a parent, as a so-called just everyday average citizen of the collective United States, seems absurd in itself. These are the people that are supposed to know the highest laws down to their state laws, and are supposed to be working for us and protecting the people. And to have gone in this system and be fighting and scrutinized and feeling guilty, and when they're going through your bank records, and I had psychologists coming into my home watching me parent my children, and your whole life gets dissected. I mean, just search and seizure alone, to go through your papers and your bank accounts and your W-2s and my Social Security and everything. It's like, is there privacy in this country, or that just goes out the window when you go into family courts because you are assumed to be an unfit parent, but they never say that, but you have to go through this whole charade of proving you're fit, and in my case doing so, and then they say you're fit, and what you're awarded is 2% time. You get 8 weeks or 8 days a year, four weekends a year. How do you pass your culture down with 4 weekends a year, with 8 days? How do you practice? How do you pass your spirituality or your religion down? Or if your language, let's say you speak Spanish, how do you pass Spanish down? If this other parent is of a different culture and they have 357 days a year. How is that equality, regardless of the gender? I think gender is significant in the statistics, but period. I don't care what your gender is. If you have a heart and you have children, just imagine. Imagine having a child and from birth having no access, having the government say, this is the consequence, there's an order. If you break the order, you're breaking the law. If you break the law, you will be punished. Punishment is liens, fines, and imprisonment. Threatened arrest, domination. So that's the reality. I had a child, the mother left. Because the child was born in Oregon, regardless if we ever lived there, anybody had any significant connection to this state or otherwise, she didn't have an Oregon driver's license, nothing. I don't even think they asked. But because my daughter was born there at a midwife center, that Oregon had jurisdiction. So ever since then, I have to bring anybody who I want as a witness from Colorado to Oregon. It's insane. So that's the history of my case. This is the paperwork. I'm going to try to breeze through it just so you get a feel. This is family courts in America. No real conflict. I was never shown to be unfit. When we talk about narcissism, cluster Bs, borderlines, all of that, in my case, what I think is extreme parental alienation, it's obvious. And to have mental health workers and even the judges, anyone with common sense, I feel like if they did due diligence and truly cared to look at anything, why would any parent advocate for 98% time to 2% time period? That in itself is so extreme. That is a statement of parental alienation. But my last court hearing, their petition was to have all of my parenting eliminated, that I had no days, because they were arguing that I was an uninterested party. After all of this paperwork, that's what I'm talking about. You can do, this is just years of my life. 3 years of my life away from my other daughter, who's now 11. Just trying to figure out, just to format their lines with the numbered lines and the double spacing, and it's so intense. And to not have representation, to be doing this myself with the help of my family, and thank God for the family, because again, that's what this is all about. If I didn't have this family that I have, with the means that they have had to help me, I don't know where I'd be right now. That's why I say I understand completely the suicide connection of males in this culture in America, but especially in relationship to what's happening with these family courts, taking children away and turning men into a paycheck. It's unconscionable. Like, how could anyone with a heart sign their name to that and okay that? And then I have to reflect and say, does the country just truly not know about this? Do the women at large not know about this? The discrepancy and the bias and the extreme sway back from the bastardy laws to the tender years doctrines, which have now given women everything and just having no value to men. And then the women are raising the men in third wave feminism, and then we have a country of a large demographic of women angry and resentful of the men that they're raising. Like this, I feel silly of how little attention and awareness I had of it prior to what I've learned since going into family court, which then turned me on to all the battling and the statistics and the domestic violence, having fake accusations made against me, and then learning about how I had no protection and no one believed me, and there's no ramifications for a woman that would say such unconscionable things to make up fake rape, fake attempted murder, fake I mean mine was really serious, you know. But that's why I expected strict scrutiny, because I cleared my name of all that stuff. So to have my name cleared of threats of murder, child abuse, woman abuse, rape, those were my big ones, extortion, everything, the free white and 21, free white and 21. If you don't know what that is, Google that. You know, it's the young white woman in distress saying the scary, violent, angry black man raped her, and then prosecuting him, and then lynching him, right? There's a history in this country, and so to have gone through all that, outside of my sob story of myself and how traumatic it was to me and my family, but to have such a stereotypical thing that's been going on for so long, when I'm trying to raise awareness about parental alienation, and to have health trained professionals that are involved in this case, that again, like, to have accusations that somebody's gonna kill you, you know, that somebody beats the baby, like, and why I address narcissism and borderline personalities and all these things is because in my case, it's textbook to parental alienation, and it's textbook to the cluster B stereotypes that you would see. And so, for example, if let's say you truly had a child with somebody who beats women and beats children and rapes, and, you know, like, they call me a pimp and things like that. And so if you're with that, you never stop fighting to have your child protected from that person, because I don't have any contact with my daughter's mother anymore. And so how would she know if I'm different or anything, if those are your real claims and you stand by that? But even in the last hearings, it wasn't even an issue. It's like, we have no problem with him. He's a good man. In our last hearing, now it's all about my child's health and that she can't fly here because she has a respiratory thing, which she does. And so they're just saying there shouldn't be parenting here because she can't handle the traveling. Which, even when health is an issue, I don't think any health matters are excusable to exclude a parent down to 2% time. You can figure something out that you can still manage and aim for something close to 50-50. It's totally feasible. In my daughter's case, she's sick all the time, coughing. It's nothing, it's not even as severe as an asthma would be. I have my own speculations that of what's going on, but that's a totally different thing. Regardless, my daughter's case just isn't that severe, so in her case specifically, to have a 2% time is unconscionable. Unless there's a parent that's unfit. Like, I'm for sanctioning and having orders of people severe drug addicts, people that have true mental issues. That's why the parental alienation, the cluster Bs and the narcissism and borderline personalities, to me, I'm passionate about, because being on the side that I am and learning what I've learned, going through what I've gone through, learning about narcissism and the true facts of my existence with this woman this is a woman that lied about her whole career for 3 years, flying around the country. Like, she would call me I'm in Italy, I'm in Paris. Like, none of that ever happened. Like, all of that was admitted on record in court, and there wasn't a single ramification. She testified to making up fake rape stories, 2 huge rape stories with court cases and settlements and crazy stuff. Like, it's not okay in any way, shape, or form to make up a story about rape. That's why I say what I went through was abuse. To be with somebody, and to the first rape scenario that she went through, that I was in a relationship with her, was a photographer in Los Angeles. This is the story. And so this case went on for 4 months, and I stood by the woman I was in love with. And so the emotional impact we went through together, to go through that, to accept it and internalize it and then heal from it and get through it together, and none of it ever happened. That's psychopathy. That's sociopathy. That's something borderline. It's not normal. And then you get into parental alienation, and any parent that would do that to another parent, the false accusations, the extreme alienation. I don't think even the moderate alienation is unacceptable. And I get the statistics, like, people are separating, you divorce, there's going to be some normal expected alienation. Humans they retaliate, they get vengeful, they're reactive. Most people don't meditate, they don't eat right, they haven't even begun to do self-development and self-love and anything. They haven't even started on healing themselves. And so you get people like that. People didn't even plan the child, or got married because of the unplanned child, and then they're separating. We know what the rates of successful marriage in this country is to begin with people that really are in love and say they're in love and are ready to give their so-called life to communion and partnership. And our rates of success here are not, it's a flip of the coin, right? It's 50%, maybe. So we know what we're getting into. Regardless, we know that there's going to be some adversarial tendencies, but that's what the courts are for. That's what mediators should be there for. That's what any of these health professionals that do get involved truly should be there for, because they have the wisdom. They're the wisdom keepers. They have the tools and the techniques and the communication to have peaceful resolution, nonviolent communication, active listening, all these things that people like me, those that are trying to be conscious and progressive and good character, are already working on and have been working on. So that's why for somebody like me, my last 20 years have been working on peaceful nonviolent revolution and the freedom movement and character development and taking responsibility for self and being authentic and community building and service to others and bringing joy to the world. That's why we make the music, is education and celebration, upliftment. So to be somebody that dedicated my life to that, have a woman that I now know nothing about, do some sort of crazy hustle to me, have a child with, end up in courts, and have to go through all of this where there's no evidence to show that there's even something to worry about. And if there's nothing to worry about, then why are we battling? Why are we spending? I spent over $100,000. My family took their retirement money out, my folks. We put everything we got into this because we would have never thought we'd do this, that you go through 3 years of constant battling over the most minute details. As my ex-wife says, making mountains out of molehills. That's what these people do. That's what the attorney does. Just throws accusations does whatever they can do. So all this paperwork, this is just money to me. This is money and bad character. This is a woman and an attorney who have no problem. I hold the attorney complacent because he's charging for all this. All this is billing hours. They sued me for $100,000. It was $97,000 in attorney billing hours. That's what this is. So you know he made at least $97,000 off this case at that point. So I think that's when we know that's a conflict of interest. That's the adversarial courts. That's why we know there's going to be tendencies and motivation to keep fighting. And that's why who keeps it in check? The judges. They're the only ones who have even a remote possibility to keep it in check. And the judges I've seen, they're complacent. It's more than negligence, is what I was saying earlier. It's conspiracy. That's how I feel. Because they can't be this negligent. They can't be this ignorant to what they're doing. They can't even be this abusive to the basic constitutional protections. Much less, why at 3 years am I fighting just for time? Like that, everybody should be working in any, whatever the gender difference is, who has more time, they should be working for increased time. Let's say a woman was incarcerated or something, and when she gets out, she hasn't had time, and the father has had the time. Then let's say she's really done the changes and is becoming a good woman. Like, if you do your time, that's the end of your punishment. So she gets out, she did her time, and let's say she's a good woman, she does right by her kids. Everyone should be working to increase her time. That should be in everybody's best interest. And in these cases, it's not there at all. In my situation, in Oregon court specifically. So, this is my paperwork. This whole binder here, Oregon pleadings. This is just from Oregon. This binder here is from Colorado. Most of my court hearings and court cases have been in Oregon because they took jurisdiction right away. And yet I still have a huge binder of Colorado matters. So, Oregon, this is all the evidence. Each of these are just cases and petitions and responding and all the dates you have to do to get through. Because if you miss one deadline, they default on you. And there's no leniency. Except on their end. Like if they miss deadlines or they have the free will to do whatever they want. It's like the worst contract in the world where one party is totally protected and the other parties, which is wild because we're their boss. They work for us. The government are public servants, so they work for the people. So these people that work for us have no restrictions, no scrutiny on them, and we're under a fine-tooth comb. So it's backwards in every way, shape, and form. So these are all my Oregon pleadings, her getting all our financial statements, the pleadings for jurisdiction, UCCJEA, which I'm going to do a video just on that because of how dangerous what I think happened with the UCCJEA specifically, which is which state gets jurisdiction over the child. That's what UCCJEA is. And it gets into kidnapping and, let's say two people go to Lake Tahoe and they're on spring break and they have sex and get pregnant and the baby's born here. How do you deal? Because it's complicated. It is complicated. We have to figure out ways to navigate this. It's just nowhere near as complicated as what they've made it in these courts. And it's not just that they've made it complicated, they've made it malicious and beneficial to fight. And so they just never throw in the towel or try to be a conscious, loving, compassionate person that puts the actual child's best interest in the forefront. And so It's wild, and we need to change it. And so that's why I bring acknowledgement for the people that know me. I haven't been involved. I haven't been doing my music project. I don't do anything because all I do is respond to this paperwork. This binder right here, it's just law. So like when we're arguing the UCCJEA, we have to come into here. We go online, and you have to go into the revised statutes and get Oregon statutes. They're different than Colorado statutes. So at the beginning, we were doing both states and just trying to educate ourselves because there was no help. There's no, unless you got money and can afford an attorney, there's just no help for you. And when you get into court, they have no empathy, and there's no leniency and no sympathy. And our paperwork, I'm gonna tell you right now, is immaculate because my ex-wife is a paralegal. So I could get the thoughts and I could know what I'm trying to present. She could direct me where I need to go to get Oregon revised statutes. So I had somebody that was in the know that could say, hey, you gotta go, if you're looking for UCCJEA, you have to go here. And then I go and read it, and I go to the CU Boulder Law Library and research and look at the jurisprudence. And 3 years of my life that I have my passion is not law and family law, and everyone's passion should be rights and what inalienable rights are. That's a lesson not just from this, but this really put case in point on why we need to be protected and how we're not at all right now. So this is where I've been for the last 3 years. I've been doing this, and there's no protection for me. And in my future, I don't see anything that's going to stop it. So right now, I'm in high conflict litigation, about to go back to court. And right now, I only have the 4 weekends a year. And so I think that's crazy. So think about that. You trying to research all this on such a fine print law so that then you can go write what's the equivalent of the best research debate paper that you would ever have to write because your children's lives depend on it. Not a grade. It's like the actual time and communion you'll get with your seed, with your family, with the most important people in your life. And so when you get beyond the pressure and you then get to the wording and do your law research, and so you try to sound articulate and spend your time doing this, and in my case then you get to court, then they don't even look at the evidence. So it's a challenge. It's something that needs to change. It's something I fight every day. It's something I struggle with every time I see my daughter's picture, because I don't ever have her. Never had her for her birthday. I haven't had her for anything significant. Well, any time is significant, so that's a strange statement to say, but I'm just saying I have very little time, and when you only have 2% of time with your family, you've done nothing wrong. Everything you see of these people is a reminder. I would never compare it to losing a child to death because my child is alive, but the challenge that I know from talking with other parents that we face of seeing our children over there, especially when you're dealing with severe parental alienation and a parent who does everything to rub it in your face to be malicious and mean and cold-hearted and vengeful and just manipulative. It tests your soul, it tests your character, it tests forgiveness and acceptance and patience and hope and everything. So that's why I'm doing these videos, is for the positives, for the hope, for the inspiration, for the knowledge, for the lessons, for the service, and trying to give back from what I have learned. And I know in some ways I can't imagine people watching through some of the links of the videos I do, because that's how you feel. Who am I? You see all this and nobody cares, even people in your community that can't really afford to come to even hearings and stand by you and speak for your character. I mean, mine's extreme. They'd have to go states away. And so then the degrees of separation to the greater community, I don't know what would make my case change. I don't know what would put pressure on these judges or the parental coordinators or the attorneys that fight like this, or the legislation that lets any of this be, or the lack of superiority, or not even superiority, because I think it should be the public watching. Let's put all of this on video so that the public can see, and so everybody's character is on the line, these judges especially. So full transparency, that's what I'm for. 50-50 standard is the default. If no parent is anywhere deemed to be unfit, if you're within the 80-20 of a healthy parental normal sanity range, right? We can't micromanage all these families. People have the right to be different. People have the right to have damage and normal mistakes and things like that, to put us under such scrutiny by people that are just hypocrites, and we're not even picking at things that put children at risk. In my case, it's all bank accounts and how much do you make, and it's insanity. So I hope we can do something to change it. I hope I can do something to bring something positive to a situation that feels like there's very little hope and maximum challenge, stress, and frustration. I went into the hospital over stress, over my body attacking itself, over heartbreak. And so that's why I want to be an advocate, not just for myself and my daughter, both my daughters, because that's what I mean. In my court case, the attorney, he doesn't even care about my other daughter. When I talked about their time together, he said, we're not trying to establish sibling time, we're establishing parenting time. I believe only a devil could say that. I truly believe that. Like, what kind of wicked human being? And it's not about, the children are everything, but it's like, these are kids. This is the place where you expect to see that the most. Family court and hospitals, things like that. How many places? Schools, where we educate and nourish our seeds. So that's why the lack of empathy, the lack of wisdom that I've seen, I don't want this to be my passion. I want to go back to doing the freedom movement. But this is the freedom movement. Because the freedom movement is about peace, love, and improvement. Self-improvement, communal improvement, national improvement, from the macro to the micro. Stopping the wars globally, which means stopping the wars, relationships with ourselves, with our own loved ones, much less our neighbors and the people we work with, much less when you get into family courts and these adversarial conditions. So that's why we're trying to make change and bring awareness. I give thanks. These are my papers. There's so much of them. Psychological exams, bills. There we go. So we're changing the cameras around, but that's it. That's my plea to the people. Can we work together to help families, to bring sanity and common sense back to everyday living, especially back to this crazy inflated government? Let's shrink down the government. Let's bring power back to the people. Let's bring wisdom back to self and accountability for self. So let's take accountability for who we are first. Lead by example. And as I say, not the golden rule, but do unto others as you think they would have you do unto them. So learn about other people's culture, show them you value diversity and more than just self. And let's be good to ourselves, and let's be good to each other. Let's transition and transform these family courts immediately to something positive, something we can be proud of, that all of us would feel proud of. Let's heal this gender thing between the men and the women. We got to. I love you, women. I want you to know that. I love the principles that are feminine. I love the wisdom and the honor that's been bestowed upon you. You're bearers of life. I'm only here because of you. So I love you. I stand by you. I support you. I honor you, I acknowledge you, and that's why we need to bridge these gaps between us, because I want to feel that from you. I want to feel that you love me, that you honor me. I'm not your enemy, and I'm nothing to fear. I know we all have fear, and there's adversarial conditions in this barbaristic world. But generally speaking, the men I know, we're here to build with you. We love you. We honor you. And let's keep it building. It's a freedom movement. My name is MCAD. I am now going by Rad Dad because I'm a good father, I'm a good man, and I acknowledge myself because a degree of positive self-love is good. Don't let the narcissist ruin what it means to truly have positive self-love for yourself. So I love me because I'm a reflection of you. I love you because you're a reflection of me. We are because we are. Ubuntu. So Ashe, Hotep, peace and love. This is my prayer for myself, and this is my prayer for you. Let us all walk that middle ground and be vibrant. Aho.
It's all coming together right here now. It's all coming together right here now. It's all coming together right here. Who's that? It's love. Can you feel it coming through that conscious revolutionary music? Yeah, you can feel it in your veins.
Hey, give thanks for those who donated and ask for ways to donate and support and help the cause. I set up a PayPal account for donations, so if you want to donate, you can do so at lovefurpapa@gmail.com. That's our PayPal account, and that's love, the number 4, POPPA @gmail.com. If you got $1 to spare, every dollar helps. We just want to say thank you to those who have supported in every way that they have. Peace and love.